Hi guys, welcome to Tech Geek. So many people have asked me like they belong to Java background. So what the questions that they should go up with? Mostly the questions related to Java technical interview questions. So I compiled the top 10 questions that have been asked to me. Basically, that's a personal experience that I'll be sharing. And what are those questions first of all? And like how you can approach to these questions, what could be the possible answer. So everything is compiled. So this is basically the top 10 questions for the Java one. Secondly, I'll be making another one for the oops that's based on Java 2. So that would be a follow-up to this video, maybe in a day or two. And if in case you have any other queries apart from these questions, please feel free to mention it in the comment. I'll help you out with the answer or anything else that's there. Okay, now let's see what the questions are like. Okay, so one of the questions that's mostly asked is what is JDK, GRE, and JVM. So this is one of the basic questions I've always come up on. You can say apart from some big companies. If you see, mostly I have interviewed for around 30 to 40 companies, that's frankly say. So apart from all of these, you can say around 17 to 18 companies were there that in TR1 I received this question. So you can expect what kind of a thing it is, because when you say you are good in Java, so they'll actually want to know if you know what actually Java works on. If not, then obviously that gives a negative impact. Okay, so if they ask you what is JDK, JRE, and Java, so you know JDK is this is the development kit, Java development kit. Then this is Java runtime environment. Okay, and this is the Java virtual machine. So these are basically the full forms that I said. Now what's the difference? So whenever we talk about Java, how does a Java run? So if we talk about a JDK, okay, if we have a JDK, in any JDK, that's a Java development kit, we have JRE. This is a Java runtime environment. This runtime environment actually consists of all the Java class libraries. The class libraries which you use are a part of this, and this JDK consists of the Java heap, you can say Java console. So there are so many things you get. Basically, the tools, the Java C, Java compiler, and in this runtime environment, you have the JVM. So you can see that JVM is the internal part. Then we have the GRE, and then we have the JDK. So Java Development Kit is basically a software development environment that will contain all the applications and the applets. Okay, it would contain an interpreter, compiler, and even generators. Okay, and then talking about JRE. So JRE is Java Runtime Environment. Now you know this JRE is actually for any program that you want to run. We need an environment to be set. So, as the name suggests, it sets up the runtime environment, that's Java RT, runtime environment. So, it makes the minimum requirements, that means it will check for the minimum requirements to run a program, to run a Java program. Now, in this JRE, we require a JVM also. As said, it requires one, you can say some minimum requirements. So among those minimum requirements, the most important one is a virtual machine. The virtual machine is basically, you can say, a specification that's required, an implementation that will check that a computer meets up the things or it can run. Okay, that's what the JVM works like. So JVM is one of the most important part of these two, that's JDK and JRE. Okay, and whatever is possible, it's important, or you can say the Java virtual machine is possible, or sorry, possible, not responsible, responsible for executing our codes, executing our Java code. that's line by line. Or so you can see these three things that you've learned: JDK, a software development kit for development tools. Then we have runtime environment, a minimum requirements to run a program, and virtual machine that's responsible for executing of the code. Okay, so now let's move towards the second question. Okay, the second question says, what is the difference between a hash set and a tree set? Okay, so both of them are sets. As you can see, sets in Java are quite common. You guys must have been using it if you are into Java quite much, and if not, then you must have read about these two terms. We have a hash set and we have a tree set. We have two things here. Okay, one is a hash set and one is a tree set. Now there comes a thing that both of them are somewhere kind of a sets. You can see we have a set terminology, but yeah, there is something different. So implementation would be quite different if we talk about, right? So as the name suggests, hash. So this uses the implementation of a hash table. And here, as the tree name comes, so it uses a tree structure implementation. Okay. Now, hash set. So we know every time not a hash table will be running. So this can allow nulls. But if you talk about this, they will not allow null. Okay. Then ordering, that's one of the most important part. As we know, whenever we run a hash set, there's no order. Maybe you entered 1 2 3, but you can get answer like this, you can get answer like this, anything. Okay, this order is not followed, but here we have a strict sorted order. Okay, we have a sorted order. This is one of the most important one. Then we have one more. So in hash set, we basically don't have a heterogeneous object. Okay, like different types, no heterogeneous object. But here we have heterogeneous objects. Then for comparing, the comparing methods of both are different. Then obviously there are various things that implementation things would go on. But these are the most important differences that you should know for a particular person. Now, if you there's one more, that's for the time complexity. If you talk about, so the time complexity for a hash set will be order of 1. Okay, that's adding, removing, or checking whether it contains. But if you talk about this, the tree structure makes it order of log n. So this is one of the most important one you must know. I hope this is fine. Like if in case there's something you feel is missing out here or something that's not clear, do let me know. Now let's check for the third question. This is again an important, or I would say a very very important question, that says that why we don't use pointers. Okay, so you must have seen in C++ we have pointers. Okay, but in Java we don't have pointers. So there is a common question that arises: why is a pointer not being used in Java, or what could be the reasons? So Java does not support pointers. There are few things. Very first is that pointers give you direct access to memory. Okay, and this can harm your security. Like your data could be your data could be altered, or anything could be, the loss of data could also be there. That's a part of security or manipulation of data. So that's what it happens, like direct access is there. Okay, so the part that says that we know in Java we follow abstraction. Okay, so we need an efficient way where we follow abstraction, not a way that it hampers it. And then we have passing the arguments by reference. So we pass the arguments by reference, so there's no way that goes on. Then one more part that comes up in that, when we use pointers, okay, when we use pointers, we can manually control or add blocks of memory. Okay, that's also parts in basically for the garbage collection point of view, that could be valid. But now coming to things like There could be a question like, is it Java only that doesn't support pointers, or why? So I guess this point, and if you actually specify the security reason, this will cover up everything that comes up in it. Because Java is well known for security and robustness, and these two reasons make pointers literally of no use for Java. Okay, because Java has a quite reference and strongly typed. Okay, now let's come to the second next one. We have a final keyword. Okay, so as you must have heard of final, finally, there are various keywords which are there. So we have a final keyword in Java. What is this final keyword? You must have heard final. As the word says final, that means there's no change going to happen now. Whatever is the thing, it is now. We won't do anything. Now final can be three things here. In Java, we can declare three things as final. First is a variable. Okay. Second is a method, and third is a class. Now these three can be declared as final, and each of them have a different thing. Okay. Final, no change in value. If we declare a variable final, that means we cannot change the value. No change in value. Secondly, if we talk about a method, so the method cannot be overridden. You know, overriding, right? So this method cannot be overridden if it is declared as final. Talking about a class, so class cannot be inherited. Cannot be inherited if it's declared as final. So these are three things that helps us out. And whenever you try to omit this, or you try to, you can say, violate this rule, you'll have a compile time error being generated. So there could be a question that, in even though we declared it as final, mostly in aptitude test you'll find some question like this: final a, like in final a, something like this. It's declared with some value initially itself. Let's say final int a, we have declared it as 2, and now in the loop itself or somewhere we are making this a as 10, and then whatever the task is being done. Whenever you compile, this particular line will give a compile time error. Okay, this compile time error tells us that we are violating the rule, that it cannot be changed and still we are changing. So that's what a final keyword does it. For a variable, it won't change the value. For a method, it won't override. And for a class, it won't inherit. Okay. Again, one of the favorite question for an easy interview experiences: what is an infinite loop? So basically, a DCS, Wipro, Newgen, these people do ask this. IBM also ask this question, kind of a very famous question, like define infinite loop. Okay, infinite loop, basically we are talking about in Java, so this could be implemented in others also. It's not just uh, the Java one that we are saying. So what is an infinite loop? Infinite loop is something that it runs and endlessly, it cannot be terminated. So we don't have a terminating condition. So we know loops: we have a for loop, we have a while loop, we have a do while loop. Okay, we have three loops, so we can do all three. First, let's check for a for one. If we don't want it to stop, so let's not give it anything itself and execute something here. That means the condition is neither being false nor being violated. That means it will run continuously. Coming to a while one. If and while we always give it true, then it's not going to stop. Again, the same thing goes for do while. Sorry, while true, nothing is going to stop. So these are the three ways you can define a sorry, you can define an infinite loop. So that's how it could be done. Infinite loop is actually a block, or you can say the loop runs endlessly without meeting the terminating condition. Coming to the next one, again, you can say this is also an important question. Not a very important, but an important question. What does this public static void string args that statement? What does this statement means? Now, this is when you're referring to the code specifically. They like to know, are you aware of these terms, or you just have a habit of writing it? Like, do you actually know what you are writing? This is just to test. Okay, so public is access specifier. I guess you guys must be aware of what is an access specifier. Access specifier is actually the particular thing that will specify the, you can say, space, or you can say where that particular element, or where that particular function is accessible, from which class, from which subclass, from which package. Then we have a static. Static, is a keyword. And we have void. This is a return type. Main. Main is actually method name, but a main function is important for running a Java program. That means the JVM will look for the main function to run this program. Then we have string args, that is array of strings that takes the input actually. Okay, that's what it is. Now this is general meaning that you come up with. Now coming to the actual meanings. As said, access specifier and public. Okay, this means that this particular main function is made public so that the JVM could invoke it from any of the classes, whether it is in the current class or not. Okay. Then static. Static, actually the main function, whenever we write, we make it static. Okay. So that it's easily accessible or invocable by JVM without instantiating the class, because we don't want that. Then void, as you know, it's a return type, so we don't want to return anything from this particular function. That's why the main is the name. It's not a keyword. Yeah, this is important. Main is not a keyword. This could be a question to test your knowledge. It's just the name. And then we have the string args. String args is actually a Java command. This is command line arguments that you take. Array of strings are taken, but it's not always fixed. Okay, a user can use as many names in place of this. Okay, we often have some dotted points too, so that specifies any number of inputs could happen. Coming to the next one, we have the difference between array and array list. So again, array and array list, if you are into programming a lot, you must be aware of both of these terms, like how you use, what is the fixed, like what is the size of these data structures, when do we use these data structures. So if you talk about array, it has a fixed size. Okay, and if you talk about array list, it's dynamic. Its size can increase and decrease dynamically. Okay, so that's one of the best, you can say, an advantage of using ArrayList. If you don't know how many elements you need, or how much space is required, so you can do the same. You don't need to specify the length. That's an important thing of array and ArrayList. If you talk about, then talk about what could be other things, like performance is there, and resizability is there. Then there comes various things like adding to a list. Now if you have to access an element, we have a list named ls, and we have an array named a. So to access an element, we can directly give its uh, index value, but if you want to access, you have to write this dot get I method. Again, adding, we can directly give a of I is 10. Here you have to do list dot add 10. Okay, that's how you have to do this. And again, for removing you have to do the same part. You have a dot remove function in list. So these are the few basic examples of the difference. Now let's move to the next question. The next question says, why is Java platform independent? Again, this comes out to be one of the most asked question. We have often heard that Java is a platform independent language, but why? So as we know that Java is compiled, okay, Java program is compiled into some code, okay, and this code is responsible for making it platform independent. That means it runs on all OS, okay, it runs on all types of OS, okay. Java compile. Now what is this code called? This code is called the byte code that makes it independent. So how it happens is, you have the Java source code, it goes to the Java compiler. From here it comes out to be the Java bytecode. This Java bytecode again has two parts. Okay? One goes to the Java interpreter. Second is a bytecode compiler. And this bytecode compiler generates it into a machine code that is understandable by your machine. So each and every machine will now be able to guess what this particular task is asking for. Okay, now that's the second last question that you see. What are the types of inheritance that are there in Java? So actually they are somewhere asking or testing whether you know which is not there. It's kind of a different way to ask which is there and which is not there, because there are various types of inheritance that are there, but which is the type of inheritance that Java doesn't support. Okay, excuse me, so sorry. Yeah, so we are not just being asked about like what is it that Java is saying, so they are asking indirectly that what is it that Java doesn't support. So you know the type of inheritance there that are there. Okay, first let's write out that single inheritance, then we have multiple, we have multi-level, then we have hierarchical, okay, and we have a hybrid. So we have five types of inheritance there. And if asked about that which are the ones that Java actually supports, so Java supports single, Java supports multi-level, Java supports hierarchical, but Java doesn't support multiple and hybrid. That is one of the basic difference that happens, that Java doesn't support these many types of only the first three. Single, you know, a single class will inherit the second one, then multi-level A, B, C, hierarchical, a child takes off its parents, or like two can also be there, somewhat like that. Okay. So that's what is there in Java. Okay. So they could ask you simple things like why it doesn't happen or anything. So this is what you know. Sorry, this is like this. A single parent can give all its properties to many children. So that's what the hierarchical one is. But there could be like multiple is actually like this. Let's say A, B is there and this is C. So C is taking up two classes properties, which is not possible. So that's what Java doesn't support. And again, somewhere if you talk about this hybrid, so this is also what Java doesn't support. So this could be a good question if you talk about which is not supported. So that's multiple and hybrid. Another good question comes up is, why is Java not pure object oriented language, or why not 100% object oriented language? So you know Java is not a pure or object oriented language because it uses primitive data types. Okay, because of the use of its primitive data types. What are the primitive data types? Like int, char, float, double, short, and many. So these are the parts that we use. So that is why it makes it that it doesn't work totally on objects. It uses these data types. So that makes it not a pure Java or sorry, object-oriented language. So this is all that I wanted to discuss with you all. You have these top 10 questions being asked in the Java interview questions. Even if you feel there's something left out or any particular question you didn't understand, feel free to ask me. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn too. I'll be happy to help you guys. Apart from it, if you have any queries regarding anything, any interview experience, any question, or any upcoming test or any series, do let me know. I'll be there to help you out. Till then, I'll request you all to please share this video with your friends, colleagues, juniors, and anyone you feel would be helpful for, even if your cousins or siblings are also there. It would be a great help for me. Thank you so much. Keep following